The desert does not forgive mistakes. It does not warn you. It simply waits, silent, endless, and merciless. And on that day, when the sun burned hotter than any living memory, something unusual appeared on the horizon. A lone woman, walking beside a dying camel, both on the edge of survival. No one knew her name. No one knew her story. But the desert ill was about to test her in ways no human had endured before. Her name was Aaliyah. She was not a soldier. Not officially, but life had trained her harder than any battlefield ever could. Born on the edge of the desert, she grew up watching caravans come and go, learning early that survival here was about patience, endurance, and trust. Beside her walked Zara, a massive camel, her once powerful frame now trembling under exhaustion. Zara was not just an animal. She was Aaliyah's partner, her lifeline, her last connection to hope. The wind picked up, dragging sand across the ground like whispers of the dead. Aaliyah pulled her scarf tighter, her eyes narrowing as she scanned the horizon. There was no shelter, no water, no sign of life. Only distance. 3 days earlier, everything had been different. Aaliyah had joined a small desert convoy, guiding supplies across a dangerous stretch of land. It was routine work, the kind she had done countless times. But this time, the desert changed its rules. A sudden sandstorm had swallowed them whole. Visibility dropped to nothing. The air turned violent, choking, suffocating. Camels panicked. Men shouted, their voices lost in the storm. And in the chaos, the convoy scattered. When the storm passed, silence returned. But the others were gone. Only Zara remained. Shadows of figures disappearing into a wall of sand, the sound of wind screaming like a living thing. Then back to the present, where that silence now feels heavier than the storm itself. Aaliyah knew the truth. Out here, being alone meant one thing. You were already dead. You just hadn't stopped breathing yet. She reached into her bajempty. No water left. No food. Just a compass. Cracked, barely working. And yet, she kept walking. Because stopping meant surrender. Zara let out a low, tired groan. Her legs trembled, sinking slightly into the sand. The camel's massive body, built to survive weeks without water, was now showing signs of collapse. Aaliyah placed her hand gently on Zara's neck. "You're not done yet," she whispered, her voice dry but steady. The bond between them was unspoken, forged through years of trust. Zara had carried her through countless journeys. Now, it was Aaliyah's turn to carry them both. Forward, hours passed. The sun climbed higher. The heat became unbearable. Then something changed. Aaliyah stopped. Her eyes focused on the distance. A faint shape, almost invisible, flickering through the heat waves. A structure or a mirage. Her heart began to race. Hope, in the desert, is dangerous. Because sometimes, it lies. And behind her, Zara hesitates. As if she senses something Aaliyah does not. The desert plays tricks on the desperate. It shows you what you want to see. It then takes it away when you're close enough to believe it's real. And as Aaliyah stepped toward the distant shape, even she didn't know if she was chasing hope or walking into a silent trap. Aaliyah narrowed her eyes, trying to focus. Her instincts told her to be careful. In the desert, mirages are as common as death. But something about this felt different. Behind her, Zara let out another strained breath. The camel was struggling now. Her once steady pace reduced to slow, uneven steps. Her head drooped lower with every moment, her strength fading under the crushing heat. Aaliyah stepped beside her, placing a hand on her neck again. "Just a little more," she whispered, though she wasn't sure if she believed it herself. Then, something unexpected happened. Zara stopped, completely. The camel refused to move. Aaliyah frowned, gently pulling the rope. "Come on," she urged. But Zara didn't budge. The wind picked up again, a sudden gust, sweeping sand across their path. The air shifted, and for a brief moment the shape ahead became clearer. It wasn't a building. It was ruins. Old broken structures, half buried in sand. The remains of something ancient, long forgotten. Aaliyah's breath caught. Ruins meant something important. Where there were ruins, there was once life. And where there was life, there might have been water. Hope surged through her, sharp and dangerous. She turned back to Zara, determination returning to her voice. "That's it. That's where we're going." But Zara still didn't move. Instead, the camel let out a low, uneasy sound, almost like a warning. Aaliyah hesitated. Camels were not foolish creatures. They survived where humans failed because they listened. To the desert, to the wind, to something instinctive. If Zara was refusing, there was a reason. But what choice did Aaliyah have? Stay here and die slowly, or move forward and risk everything? Her jaw tightened. She made her decision. "We don't have another path," she said quietly. With a firm grip, she stepped forward again. This time Zara followed. Slowly, reluctantly. The ruins grew closer. The camera would rise above them now, revealing the full sin-cracked stone walls, half-collapsed structures, shadows stretching across the sand like silent watchers. It felt wrong. Too quiet, too still. Alia stepped into the ruins, her boots crunching against ancient debris. The air here felt different, cooler, almost trapped. She moved carefully, scanning every corner. Then, she saw it. A well, old, broken, but still standing. Her heart pounded. Water? It had to be. She rushed forward, dropping to her knees, peering inside. Darkness. Deep, endless darkness. She grabbed a small stone and dropped it. The camera would follow the falling stone. Down, down. Then, a faint sound. Alia froze. It wasn't the sound of water. It was something else. Something moving. Her breath slowed. Her eyes widened. And behind her, Zara suddenly stepped back. The wind howled through the ruins. And for the first time since entering the desert, Alia felt fear. Real fear. Because whatever was inside that well, it wasn't empty, and it wasn't alone. The desert is a cruel witness to history. It doesn't just take your water, it takes your hope, leaving only sun-bleached ruins and silence. Alia had been walking for days. The heat was a physical weight, pressing against her cracked skin, but her eyes remained fixed on the horizon. She found it at the center of the forgotten city, a stone-lined well, its mouth agape like a hungry throat waiting for a sacrifice. Alia stood at the edge, her breathing sharp and controlled. She could feel the cool air rising from the depths, a mockery of her thirst. Behind her, Zara shifted nervously. The camel's shaggy fur rippled as she stepped back, her ears twitching at a sound only she could hear. Alia picked up a smooth stone and dropped it into the darkness. She leaned in, counting the seconds, waiting for the splash that never came. Instead of water, there was a hollow, grinding sound. Something deep within the well had reacted to the stone, a movement that echoed like bone. Desperate, she tied a stone to a frayed rope and lowered it down. Her hands shook, the rough hemp biting into her calloused palms. The rope descended 50 feet, then 60. Suddenly, it jerked violently, as if something below had grabbed it. Then it went completely slack. She pulled it up with frantic strength. The stone was still attached, but the rope was bone dry. Despair hit her harder than the desert sun. But Zara wasn't finished. The camel began digging at a nearby sandy wall, her heavy hooves kicking up clouds of ancient, choking dust. Alia saw it, then a flat, man-made stone slab hidden behind the sand. It wasn't a natural formation. It was a door, sealed for centuries. She pulled with everything she had. As the slab moved, a rush of cold, ancient air escaped, smelling of wet earth and forgotten things. A hidden passage lay before her. Alia lit a cloth torch, the flame dancing wildly in the sudden draft of the subterranean world. She looked at Zara one last time. The camel stood still, her eyes reflecting the torchlight, watching as her mistress prepared to descend. The tunnel was narrow and steep. Alia lowered herself in, her boots scraping against walls marked with warnings that no living soul could read. The air grew colder with every step. The heat of the desert was a distant memory, replaced by a damp, oppressive chill that sank into her bones. She sensed she was not alone. The shadows seemed to stretch and move just beyond the reach of her light, whispering of things long forgotten. The narrow passage finally opened into a massive chamber. It was an underground cathedral, its ceiling lost in the darkness above. At the center of the room lay a still, clear pool of water. It was a mirror of liquid silver, reflecting her torchlight with impossible clarity. Relief washed over her like a tidal wave. Alia dropped to her knees at the water's edge, her reflection trembling as she reached down. She drank desperately. The water was unnaturally cold, sharp enough to hurt, but it was the sweetest thing she had ever tasted. As the ripples in the water began to settle, Alia's eyes widened. The reflection looking back at her wasn't just her own. The torch flickered violently as the air in the chamber shifted. A heavy rhythmic breathing that wasn't her own filled the silence. She realized too late that she had found the desert's secret. But some secrets are better left buried in the dark, guarded by those who wait. Survival always demands something in return. In the desert, the price is often simple strength, endurance, time, but sometimes the price is far greater. And as Alia slowly turned in that underground chamber, she realized this was one of those times. Behind her stood a figure, still, silent, almost blending into the stone itself. Alia didn't move, didn't speak. Her instincts screamed at her, but her mind forced her to stay calm. The figure stepped forward, just enough for the faint light to touch its face. Human, old, worn by time. A man who looked as if he had been here for years, maybe longer. His eyes met hers. Not hostile but not welcoming either. Just watching. The silence stretched between them. Heavy, uncomfortable. Then, finally, you found it, he said, his voice rough, barely used. Alia swallowed. What is this place? She asked quietly. The man looked around, his gaze distant, a place people forgot, and were meant to forget. Is there a way out? She asked. The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped closer to the water, kneeling beside it. There is always a way out, he said, but not everyone gets to take it. Alia's chest tightened. What does that mean? The man looked up at her. For this place to give life, it must take something in return. The words hung in the air, cold, unavoidable. Alia's thoughts went instantly to Zara, waiting above, alone, weak. No, she whispered. The man didn't react. It has been this way for as long as I remember. Alia stepped back, shaking her head. There has to be another way. But deep down, she knew the truth. The desert had already taken everything else. This was the final price. Zara had carried her through life, through every journey, through every storm. And now, it was her turn. Alia closed her eyes, her breath shaking. Then slowly, she made her choice. The desert stretches endlessly ahead, and Zara keeps walking, because survival always comes with a cost. And sometimes, the strongest souls are the ones who choose to stay behind. The desert never tells the full story. It keeps what it wants, and lets the rest drift away, like sand in the wind. But sometimes, just sometimes it leaves behind an echo, a trace, a question that refuses to die. And in that silence, Zara walks alone. Her footsteps are steady, powerful again. She stops. Not to the wind, not to the shifting sand, but to something else. A memory, a presence. Alia Zara exhales slowly, a deep, resonating breath. And then, she moves again, forward, because that is what Alia would have done. Zara slows. The caravan notices her, a camel, alone. One of the men approaches carefully. He studies her, not just her strength, but the marks she carries, the rope, the worn saddle, the faint traces of someone who was once there. This camel, he murmurs, she belonged to someone, whoever she was. She saved this one. The desert does not need witnesses, it only needs survivors. Some stories don't end. They become part of the land itself. And out here, in the endless silence of sand and Senolia, is not gone. She is the echo that remains. In the heart of the shifting sands, where time is measured in grains of dust and whispers of wind, a legend breathes. The travelers gather as the sun surrenders to the night, seeking comfort in the flicker of a dying fire against the encroaching cold. But Zara, the ancient guardian of the herd, does not rest. Her eyes are fixed on the horizon, watching a ghost only she remembers. The man, his face, a map of 1,000 journeys, finally breaks the heavy silence. He speaks of Alia, the woman who stayed behind. Before the dunes claimed these ruins, Alia walked where no others dared. She searched for the light hidden within the hollowed stones. She left her footprints in the sand, not as a path to follow, but as a promise that the desert would never be empty again. As the deep night takes hold and the caravan falls into a restless slumber, the silent vigil of the desert begins. Zara rises. With a deliberate grace that defies her size, she moves toward the shadows of the ruins, following a silent call. There, in the space between the stars and the sand, a figure appears. Alia, untouched by the biting wind, stands as a guardian. Alia moves through the night with a strength that transcends the living. She is no longer a traveler. She is the desert itself. Zara watches in silent acceptance. The bond between the beast and the guardian is a secret the sands will keep forever. Before the sun can break the horizon, the air grows cold and suspended. The world holds its breath for the coming dawn. The man awakens to a miracle. Fresh footprints lead from the ruins tracks made by a traveler who was never truly there. He touches the ground and finds it warm, as if the desert floor itself has been blessed by a passing soul. Led by Zara, the caravan follows the invisible trail. They move through the dunes as the sun begins its ascent into the sky. The path leads them to a place that exists on no map, a shimmering oasis, a sanctuary of life in the heart of the void. As the travelers celebrate their survival, a figure stands at the edge of the water, wrapped in the rising light of a new day. For a brief, wordless moment, Zara and Alia lock eyes. A silent gratitude passes between them, a debt of protection paid. Alia steps back into the light, her physical form dissolving into the brilliance of the sun, leaving the caravan in safety. The desert remains endless and unforgiving, but it is no longer empty. A guardian watches over the sands, and her legend will never fade. Listen closely to the wind. In the soft breath that stirs the dunes, you can still hear the name of the one who stayed. The desert is more than sand and wind. It is a vast library of forgotten histories, waiting for a witness to uncover its secrets. Captain Samira Qureshi rides alone, her discipline a sharp contrast to the chaotic shifting of the dunes around her. Her eyes are not searching for an enemy, but for a destination that exists only in the oldest of legends. The heat is relentless, yet her movements remain precise, driven by a duty that transcends her military orders. Among the remains of a civilization long gone, she finds the markers she has spent years dreaming of, buried beneath the weight of time. A hidden entrance reveals itself to the one who knows where to look. The transition from the blinding light to the cold vacuum of the depths is a threshold into another world. She descends into the silence, her flashlight cutting through a darkness that has remained undisturbed for centuries. The walls tell stories of stars and water, etched in symbols that predate the empires of the modern world. At the heart of the ruins lies a pool of water, impossible and still, reflecting a sky that isn't there. One touch is all it takes to wake the memory of the desert, and the guardian who watches over it. Aaliyah emerges like a breath of air, a presence as ancient as the stones themselves, draped in robes of sand. The tension between the soldier and the spirit is palpable, a clash of modern iron and eternal spirit. They speak without voices, sharing the weight of a choice that will determine the fate of the land above. Samira realizes that to save the future, she must relinquish her connection to the past. The silver tag, a symbol of her rank and name, is the final price for the safety of the innocent. As the metal sinks into the depths, the hostility of the cave fades into a solemn peace. The sacrifice is accepted. The desert remembers, and the cycle of duty finds its conclusion. Returning to the surface, the captain finds a world that has already begun to forget her path. The wind is a relentless eraser, burying the ruins once more under a blanket of gold. In the distance, a young girl named Zara walks toward the horizon, a living testament to the freedom bought in the dark. She does not look back, for her journey is only beginning, fueled by the stories of those who chose to lead. Some choices are written in the sand, while others are etched in the soul of the world forever. The desert remains silent, keeping the secret of Samira and Aaliyah as the stars begin to claim the sky. The desert does not need monuments. It does not carve names into stone or build statues for the fallen. Its memory is quieter, deeper, carried not in words but in presence. And long after the world forgets, the desert remembers its guardians. This place, it's not just about survival. No, it's about balance. So it continues, it always does. In the harshest places on earth, heroes are not the ones who escape. They are the ones who stay. The desert does not end. It only changes form. Dunes become valleys, silence becomes wind, and stories become something greater than memory. They become direction. You feel it. Another one, do you ever regret it? No, because every step they take means we made the right choice. There's another, she's not lost. She's searching. What happens if she finds this place? Then the story changes. Some stories are written by fate, but the greatest one